Some men do not become cold because they never cared. Some men become cold because they cared too much, lost too much, and never learned what to do with the fear that came after. That's what makes Darth Vader such a powerful mirror for men like us. Not because he's the villain, not because he's feared everywhere he goes, but because before all of that, before the mask, before the breathing, before the black suit, he was a man who was terrified of being powerless again. And that is a different kind of fear. Fear of loss is already heavy. Losing someone you love through death, betrayal, abandonment, or emotional distance can change the way you see everything. But underneath the fear of loss, there is often something even deeper: helplessness. The memory of standing there while something happens that you can't stop. The memory of loving someone and still not being able to save them. The memory of doing everything you knew how to do and still watching the outcome break you. That is what Anakin Skywalker never recovered from. He did not just lose his mother. He arrived too late. He had power, but not enough power. He had love, but love did not give him control. And once a man has felt that kind of helplessness, something in him can make a promise. Never again will I be too late. Never again will I be weak. Never again will I love someone without having some way to protect them. Never again will I stand there powerless while life takes something from me. That sounds strong at first. It sounds like determination. It sounds like protection. It sounds like a man becoming serious about what matters. But sometimes, that promise becomes the beginning of the armor. And that is where Vader begins. Not with the suit, not with the Empire, not even with rage. He begins with fear. The fear of feeling helpless again. And for everyday men, that fear may not look dramatic from the outside. It might look like overthinking. It might look like watching for small changes in somebody's tone. It might look like reading too deeply into delayed replies. It might look like assuming distance means abandonment. It might look like planning for problems before they happen. It might look like trying to control the relationship because losing it would feel unbearable. And in our minds, we are not trying to hurt anybody. We are trying to prevent pain. That is the part people do not always understand. A man who is afraid of loss may honestly believe he is protecting what he loves. He may think, I see where this is going. He may think, I have been here before. He may think, if I do not act now, this will fall apart. And when a man has actually been hurt before, that voice is hard to ignore. Because sometimes fear has evidence. Sometimes you were right to feel unsafe. Sometimes the person really did leave. Sometimes they really did betray you. Sometimes you really did see the shift before they admitted it. And when your fear gets validated, it becomes harder to challenge later, because your mind starts saying, see, I told you, that is dangerous. Not because the fear is fake, but because fear does not know when to stop. I understand that more than I wish I did. I have a huge fear of losing people I love, through death or through emotional distance. Both terrify me, and I know those are not the same thing. Death is final in a way nothing else is, but losing someone emotionally has its own grief too. Watching someone become distant while they are still alive hurts. Loving someone who no longer feels safe hurts. Feeling them slowly leave before they ever say goodbye hurts. And after enough of that, love can stop feeling peaceful. It can start feeling dangerous. With my son, I did not have that fear ahead of time. No one thinks their child is going to die. No one prepares their heart for that. That kind of loss crashes into your life and leaves you trying to understand how the world is still moving. And part of what stays with you is the helplessness, not just the grief, the feeling that something happened and you couldn't stop it. That feeling can get buried deep, but it doesn't disappear. Then there's the other kind of loss, the kind where someone is still alive, but emotionally they stop feeling like home. With his mom, loving her did not feel safe. And the hard part is, I was right. That is a complicated thing to admit, because when love feels unsafe and then life proves you right, it teaches your mind the wrong lesson. It doesn't say heal. It says stay ready, watch everything, and don't let this happen again. So you start anticipating problems before they happen. You start thinking of ways to solve or avoid pain even arrives. You start trying to manage the future because the past already showed you what can happen when you don't. And in your mind, it's love. You're trying to save them or the relationship. You're trying to protect yourself from being powerless again. But this is where Vader becomes the warning, because fear can make control feel like protection. Anakin thought he was saving Padme. He thought he was doing what love required. He thought if he became powerful enough, he could stop the loss before it happened. But the more afraid he became, the less he actually saw her. She became less of a person standing in front of him, and more of an outcome he was trying to control. That is uncomfortable because men can do that in real life too. Not with the Force, not with some galaxy-changing decision, but in smaller ways. We can stop listening because we're too busy predicting. We can stop trusting because we are too busy preparing. We can stop loving freely because we are too busy trying to prevent pain. We can start responding to old wounds instead of the person in front of us. That is how fear turns a relationship into survival mode. And survival mode is exhausting. It's exhausting for the person who feels managed. And it's exhausting for the man who cannot rest. Because when you're terrified of loss, peace feels suspicious. You're always waiting for the shift, the change in energy, the slow fade, the moment where they stop choosing you the same way. And instead of saying, I'm scared, a lot of us get quiet, or defensive, or cold, or controlling, because anger feels stronger than fear. Control feels safer than vulnerability. Silence feels safer than admitting how much something matters. That's the armor. Every man has his own version. It could look like pride, independence, emotional distance, somewhere that I don't need anybody attitude. Somewhere the ability to cut people off quickly before they can be left first, and some men wear control. The armor usually has a story behind it. That's why I don't think we should shame men for having walls. Some walls were built because something real happened. Some walls helped us survive. But at some point, we have to ask a hard question. Is this still protecting me, or is it trapping me? That is Vader in the suit. The same armor that keeps him alive also keeps him imprisoned. He can breathe through it, but he cannot really live in it. And that is what fear does when we let it lead too long. It gives us safety, but it takes our softness. It gives us control, but it takes our peace. It gives us distance, but it takes connection. And eventually, we may become hard to reach, even for the people who actually care about us. That isn't what most of us want. Most men aren't trying to become cold. We aren't trying to become suspicious. We aren't trying to become controlling. We are trying not to be destroyed again. That is the honest sentence. I was scared of being powerless again. Not just scared of being alone. Not just scared of being rejected. Not just scared of someone leaving. Scared of that feeling. The feeling where something is happening and nothing you do can stop it. The feeling where someone you love is slipping away and your love does not give you control. That is a brutal thing to accept. But trying to control everything does not save us from pain. Sometimes it creates the very distance we were trying to prevent. Sometimes it pushes away the people we are scared to lose. Sometimes it turns love into a battlefield when it was supposed to be a place to breathe. That is the lesson Vader never learned in time. Power is not the same as healing. Being feared is not the same as being safe. Being untouchable is not the same as being free, and being guarded is not always the same as being strong. Sometimes it is just pain with discipline around it. For men like us, healing does not mean pretending loss isn't scary. It is scary. People can die, people can leave, people can change. People can betray you. People can be here today and gone tomorrow. That's real. Healing is not lying about that. Healing is learning how to love without letting fear become the master. It is learning to say, I am scared, before fear turns into control. It's learning to say, I feel powerless, before helplessness turns into anger. It's learning to stop punishing the present for what happened in the past. And no, that's not easy. Especially when the past gave you evidence, especially when your fear was right before, especially when your gut told you something was wrong, and it really was. But even then, fear cannot be allowed to drive forever. Because fear does not know how to love. Fear knows how to grip. Fear knows how to guard. Fear knows how to attack. Fear knows how to shut down. But fear does not know how to be present. That's something we have to learn slowly, not how to become fearless. That's not realistic. The work is learning to recognize when fear is driving. To pause before protection becomes control. To notice when we are responding to a memory instead of a person. To admit that being powerless once does not mean we have to spend the rest of our lives trying to control everything. Because we can't control everything. We can't control death. We can't control whether someone chooses us. We can't control every ending. And that truth is painful. But becoming cold does not make it less true. So maybe the goal isn't to become untouchable. Maybe the goal is to stay human. Scarred, but human. Careful, but human. Wiser, but human. Still able to love without turning love into control. Still able to protect without becoming possessive. Still able to grieve without becoming cruel. Darth Vader shows us what happens when a man tries to escape helplessness by becoming powerful. Men like us have to learn something different. We have to learn how to carry helplessness without letting it corrupt us. We have to learn how to survive loss without becoming loss. Because we have already lost enough. We don't need to lose ourselves too. So if you're a man who is scared of losing people, I understand. If you watch for danger before it arrives, I get it. If you became colder because love started feeling unsafe, I'm there with you. But fear may explain the armor. It cannot become the man. This is Men Like Us, and I'll see you in the next one.